What's going on, guys? This is Bobby Douglas. Welcome to another 2021 NBA Draft Prospect full game video breakdown. Today we are taking a look at Oregon guard Chris Duarte. Chris Duarte had a very effective and efficient season for the Ducks this past year, averaged around 17 points a game on 50, 40, 80 shooting. One of the guys who I think is in the top 3 for best shooters in this draft class. So really excited to watch him play. He's also my candidate for the Dennis Green Prospect of the Year, and I will explain what that means as we get this video started. So here we go. He's going to be number 5 in the white. So I'm circling him right here. And yeah, we will watch him play. Really excited about this one. I was watching this game earlier this morning, or earlier tonight actually. And I was just kind of like blown away by the overall shot making of Duarte right there. Decent contest, but the shot goes in over him. But Chris Duarte, 24-year-old, going to be a 24-year-old rookie, kind of had a winding path to Oregon and then ultimately the NBA. I think he spent a few years in at a junior college. I think he's from Puerto Rico, I want to say. And so he's kind of been like all over the place in terms of his basketball career. Lands at Oregon, had a really good season this year. And so he really kind of put himself into that first round discussion. He will be a first rounder on my board. Right now, I think I have him at like 23. So I think I guess now it's a good time to explain the Dennis Green Prospect of the Year. So basically, if you don't know who Dennis Green is, he was a former football coach, and he had a very famous and kind of viral press conference. He was asked about like what a team, like how like this team played, right? Their opponent played, and he basically said in like this stone cold voice, I'm gonna butcher this impression, but he goes like, "They are who we thought they were." So that was basically it, right? And it's a huge viral moment. It's one of the most probably one of the most quoted, I would say, press conferences of all time. It's up there with like the playoffs. I think that's Jim Moore, and you have like the practice. We talk about practice, Allen Iverson, right? I think it's up there with those. But yeah, so the Dennis Green Prospect of the Year, basically is just a guy who the way he plays in college is basically the exact same way he'll be playing in the NBA, right? Just kind of like immediately lists like the what you see is what you get type of prospect. No real surprises. Maybe he doesn't have the highest upside. And he just kind of is like at his peak in a way, you know what I mean? Just like immediately like what you see on the floor now is what you're going to get in the NBA. That is the Dennis Green Prospect of the Year. Last year it was Desmond Bane from Memphis, or from TCU, now with the Memphis Grizzlies. And he had a very good rookie season. And again, these guys are usually very solid prospects early on in their career, just because the learning curve and just the overall like physicality curve in terms of the transition from college to the NBA or pro league overseas to NBA is pretty flat compared to some of these other guys who you would be considering projects, things like that. So Duarte, 24 years old as a rookie, really efficient as a scorer, and he is this year's Dennis Green Prospect of the Year. I think he's a guy that provides really solid overall, basketball intelligence right there. Again, you can kind of just see the comfort he has, with that catch and shoot, putting it on the floor, off movement. Anything you want Chris Duarte to do right there, to rip through one dribble and a mid-range pull-up on the right wing. He can hit that. He can hit deep threes. He has really good range. Just everything you want in terms of a solid contributor in the NBA offensively, I think Chris Duarte has. He's kind of like Cam Thomas, except he actually like tries on defense, and he's just a lot more efficient at this stage, right? Kind of think of him like that on offense in terms of what he did at Oregon. He was kind of like the go-to bucket guy. Obviously had a little bit more passing skill and overall just maturity, right, than a Cam Thomas, but just kind of, I think, another guy kind of in that Cam Thomas, Josh Christopher type mold. But I think he's more mature, he's stronger, he's older, and he's a better defender than both of those guys right now. On the ball, he struggles just because he's not super laterally gifted. But off the ball, he's really instinctual. He averages around close to 2 steals per game. Always in the right spot, can pick passes off, plays the passing lane. And actually, I kind of see him more of like an undersized 3 rather than a shooting guard. And for me personally, that's just because I think he's super strong. 6'6", 190, but he's just like, it's pretty much all muscle. And so he can really kind of, he's not affected by contact. He plays physical offensively and defensively. And I think he might have more success kind of guarding wings than guards in the NBA. Right, they were kind of looking for that pull-up shot. Couldn't really get to it there, though. But yeah, that's just kind of my take. I think he's probably better off. It's kind of more playing guarding, wings rather than guards, I would say. But yeah, that's just kind of where I see him. And again, like, it's kind of hard to slot guys like this in terms of rankings just because, you really don't know. Like, sure, he might be a top 10 player in the class for the rookie deals, right? So, like, for the first 2 to 4 years, he might be a top 10 rookie, right? And then other guys might start passing him up as they kind of, like, grow into their bodies, right? Because by the time, like, this class is on their second contracts, Chris Duarte is 29 years old, right? And so it's a weird situation in terms of, like, ranking people, just because, like, he's going to be 24. That's, like, 5 years older than most of these guys that are being taken in the first round now. But he's going to be one of the more effective rookies, I think. And, he's definitely a guy I would put on an all-rookie team right now if I'm doing, like, a preseason all-rookie team regardless of fit. Right here, another job, just kind of coming off this ball screen. Again, simple one dribble, goes to the left, goes to the right. It doesn't matter. He has really good range. He knocks that 3 and 2. And again, I tried to find a game where, like, the shooting percentages were kind of, like, balanced in a way. Like, I don't try to, like, right there, really nice job getting that deflection. So again, right here, before I get to my next point, like, Duarte, again, Oregon likes to play this press, but again, just kind of has active hands, kind of knows where to be, knows about angles, things like that. And just, he's a really smart defender, not necessarily an impactful one. On the ball just because of that lateral quickness issue and things like that. He's kind of a tweener, right? Can play. Does he guard the perimeter? Does he guard more wings? Things like that. But what was I going to say? Going back to that point, what was it? Damn it. Why can't I think? I'll think of it. But, yeah, just kind of like the overall deal with Duarte. It's just like, it's hard to rank him, right? Because a lot of these guys are going to be younger. When it comes to their second contract, Duarte might be one of the better spots, but yeah. I don't know what I was talking about. It was like the all-rookie team, right? So like if I did a preseason all-rookie team regardless of fit, so that's like first and second team, 10 guys total, I think Duarte would be on that list for me, just because, again, I think that his transition to the NBA game is going to be a lot smoother than some of these other prospects. When you look at guys like Josh Christopher, Cam Thomas, I'm trying to think of a good kind of example, like a Jonathan Kuminga. You know what I mean? I think Duarte is going to have a better rookie season than him. And so that's kind of like, but then again, it's like you kind of are weighing that immediate return with the long-term upside. And so I think Duarte is probably best suited for a contending team, just kind of being a guy who can basically create his own offense, has a really nice jump shot, can shoot up the catch, off movement. Anything you want, I think Duarte can do. And then, just kind of like filling that positional size in your backcourt, I think that could be something that's pretty useful as well. So, yeah, if I'm a contending team in the first round, if I'm like the Clippers, if I'm the Lakers, someone like them, if I'm the Jazz, like I would take a flyer on Duarte. And, he's going to be 24 on when he debuts in the NBA. But, I think with some of these teams that have like a window that is in the present, right? Like Duarte is going to fit your timeline. But if you're like a kind of like a developmental team, like if you're Houston, if you're Oklahoma City, I maybe would take a pass on Duarte just because he doesn't really fit that timeline. Given like the amount of like, attention he has to get as a first rounder, right? Things like that. So definitely more suited for a contending team. I think you're going to see like, honestly, if like the Brooklyn Nets would stay at 27, I think they'd really like him. Right here, again, Duarte coming off this flare screen. And again, just perfect feet. It's such a smooth shot, smooth release, consistent every single time the same way. He has balance on point all the time. And that's what I wanted to say. This is what I wanted to say. Okay, good, I got it. So whenever I'm trying to like find games of these prospects, right? Like I'm not trying to do like their best game. I'm not trying to do their worst game. Before I get to that point, though, you can kind of see the lateral limitations of Duarte right here. He's going to overhelp, and then he's kind of in this stance, but he can't really compete there. I think that's with, I don't even know who that is for Arizona, but you can kind of see like the overall like perimeter speed issues, I would say. He can hold his own at points, right? Because he is pretty strong. But in terms of a guy that like can really kind of like, stay in front of some of the best NBA guards, I struggle to see that with Duarte. But going back to my initial point, so usually when I'm trying to do these games, right, I'm trying to find like a middle ground game. I'm not trying to find like the worst possible game they played. I'm not trying to find the best one, right? That doesn't really do the prospect justice in either regard, right? Because you're trying to find a game that is the most representative of the prospect season, right? And so when I'm looking at possible Oregon games, right, there may be like 6 or 7 I could have chose from. Every single one of them, Duarte shot like 7 of 10 from the floor or something. Or like something ridiculous, right? You can see right here defensively, just Duarte kind of just, he's going to take a little shot right here, but he recovers well, right? And again, just kind of being that strong body where he can just kind of, stay solid in his stance, Like, I think he could be like a really solid, like, again, like kind of like a wing-ish defender if he gets a little bit stronger, you know what I mean? Because then it doesn't really require a whole lot of lateral quickness compared to if he were guarding on the perimeter. But just kind of a guy who can just kind of like stay tough, stay strong. I think that would be really, really worthwhile for Duarte. So I would almost have him, if I'm drafting him, I would rather develop him as more of a 3 leaning player in terms of rather than like a 2, right? So someone who can guard primarily wings, get him in the weight room, get him stronger, things like that. That's how I would attack the Chris Duarte development. Obviously, he's already in his prime, basically, when he's 24. But, that's how I would kind of spend his first few years in the NBA. He'll get minutes right away because of that shooting ability and his overall defensive hustle, and he always goes for loose balls, things like that. But I would try to get him a little bit stronger just so he can kind of hold his own against some of the NBA's better wings because he can shoot. Offensively, he'll fit in just fine. But yeah, no, going to my point. So again, you try to find like the middle ground game, right? And with Duarte, every single one of these games, it was like, oh, he's shooting 7 of 11 from the floor. He's shooting like 14 of 18 from the field. Like every single game that I could have done, like he was just shooting just the cover off the ball, right? And so I ultimately just had to kind of be like, all right, like in this game he's going to go 7 of 10 from the floor, 4 or 5 from 3. But the way he shoots it, it almost looks like it's natural for him. Like every single shot he takes, it looks like it's going in. And so again, he's a guy I just really struggle on my board because if you're asking me who's going to be the best player, is he going to be a top 20 player the next 5 years in the NBA from this class? I absolutely have him in the top 20. But where I kind of struggle with him is that it's just he is 24. How much can he really develop further, right? Compared to some of these other guys with really high upsides. And so I think that's kind of the dilemma that I think big board guys kind of face, not so much NBA teams, just because there is a very select group of teams that I think would be interesting in drafting Duarte. A lot of guys, I think the Thunder, the Rockets, any of those teams, I wouldn't be surprised if Duarte's not even on their board, right? If Shai Gilgeous-Alexander doesn't fit the Thunder timeline at 22 years old, there's no way in hell Chris Duarte does, right? And so, you can kind of see, there will be some teams that I think are just, have no interest in drafting him, which I think is totally fine, just given the age thing. But if you're asking me, is he going to be a top 15, 20 player from his class in the next 4 years? I'd probably say yes, And so that's kind of just, the overall issue I have, in kind of scouting him, because, he's a very solid player, shoots really well, one of the prettiest jump shots, I think, in this class. And yeah, he works hard, he hustles, but how much can you really get out of him at 24? So, we're going to have to see. But I think he'll be a very productive NBA player. And again, he's definitely a guy who can help a playoff team right now. And so that's ultimately what it's going to come down to. So, he won't fall to 30, I don't think. But if you're looking at 22 to the Lakers, 25 to the Clippers, those teams, 28 to the Sixers, right? 29 to Phoenix. Phoenix, maybe not them. But, just teams like that I think could really use him. 27 to Brooklyn, obviously. Just a lot of those teams I think would be really, really fun to see Duarte on as we head into next season. Speaking of next season, I think I should probably mention this season. So this is being recorded. Let's see what he does here. Again, right here, just kind of again, when he's working in tight spaces, sometimes that lateral quickness isn't going to be as exposed. He actually does have really good defensive fundamentals. He gets down in a stance, he bends his knees, back straight, palms up. The classic basketball camp that you went to when you were 10, 11 years old. Duarte clearly has been to those same camps, right? And so in tight spaces like this, he's able to kind of just move his feet really well. And again, he kind of has that baseline as an extra defender. But it's when he gets into space, then it becomes a little bit more of an issue. But that's why, if he's guarding a wing, then it doesn't become nearly as catastrophic, right? because he is a solid off-ball defender. He'll get a lot of steals, a lot of deflections. We saw one earlier in this half. Makes the smart rotation, things like that. Just kind of when he gets out in space, like I think he might struggle. Right here, kind of loses the ball, but he gets it back. Yeah. And again, not really much of a playmaker for others. He's much more of just a guy who can, create his own offense. He can use his shooting ability to kind of parlay that into attacking closeouts and finishing at the rim, where he is a very strong rim finisher with either hand. But yeah, not really a guy who's creating advantages for others in the sense of like a Cade Cunningham, obviously, right? So again, kind of what you see is what you get. Only average around 2.5 assists per game compared to around 2.5 turnovers per game, right? And so I think he does kind of have natural passing feel. He's not going to be a guy that totally kind of bogs down your offense. But he's not like a guy that I would say is getting you 5 to 6 assists per night, right? He can pass in spots. He makes some good passes in this game, actually. But yeah, this is another example. He doesn't make this shot, but just watch how unaffected he is by this contact. He's going to take a pretty big shot here, right? Just a big collision, and it doesn't even seem to bother him, right? It doesn't really affect his elevation, right? You can see he's on the ground, right? So it obviously kind of hurt him. But, again, he's just so strong and so built. We'll watch it again here, that he actually gets a really good, shot at an and one here, right? And again, he can finish. He's pretty crafty around the rim, and he's just so strong that he's taking a shot from this guy. And again, just not even affected by it, really. If that doesn't get deflected by, I think, Brown, that might be an and one right there. And so I think, although that shot doesn't go in, you're kind of seeing the at the rim scoring potential of Chris Duarte. And so a lot of guys will just focus on the 3-point shooting of Duarte, which is obviously probably his most desirable trait. But I really do think that there is some level of 3-level scoring, with Duarte. And I hesitate to say potential because I think he's already kind of shown it at Oregon, right? We saw him hit that mid-range floater. He'll hit that mid-range jumper earlier in the first half. He'll hit a floater in this game too, and then obviously he can get to the rim. And it all kind of stems with that shooting ability, though, right? Because if you're a shooting threat, people have to kind of guard you out on the perimeter, and that's where Duarte can really hurt you because he's so manipulative with his handle, right? He can get guys, going the wrong way. He's a very good job. He does a very good job at getting to his spots, right? He can pull up at any time, so you kind of have to watch for that. And so, not the quickest guy, not the best first step, obviously, but he kind of makes it work. Right here. Let's see what happens here. So I think he's going to go under this ball screen. Yeah, he's going to go under it. Hard hedge from Oregon, and then Duarte kind of has to get back. That's kind of just like a miscommunication play. Duarte probably could have gone over that screen, which would have been helpful. But yeah. Let's see what we got here. Big block from Arizona. But yeah, speaking of contending teams, shout out Milwaukee Bucks for making the finals. Or for winning the finals, in 6 games over the Phoenix Suns. This video is being filmed probably an hour after the game ended. Yeah, so, NBA season ends, Bucks win the finals. I'm down in my basement watching Chris Duarte. That's seemingly how it's going. Yeah, I was rooting for the Bucks all the way. I had the Bucks winning it all from the beginning of the year, but I think I may have mentioned it in another video, but I'm kind of just hesitant to take credit for it just because they so clearly were not the best team in the NBA this year. But you know what? Staying healthy is a skill, and the Bucks did it. So congrats to them. I'm really excited for them. Obviously, I went to Marquette my freshman year, so I'm really familiar with the area, familiar with Fiserv Forum. And so yeah, it's kind of a fun little area. I was down there for Game 2 of the Atlanta series, I think. Yeah, just kind of at the bars and stuff there. And then I might go up for the parade depending on the day it is. So hopefully. That happens, but yeah, shout out to the Bucks fans, whatever. I know a lot of you guys, so yeah, congrats. But yeah, let's see what Duarte does here. And again, he can't finish that one right here, but again, just kind of using. So watch this, right? So he has a big switch down to him, right? And because he's kind of a tweener, I think that kind of helps him offensively, right? Because he'll probably be guarded by bigger guys in certain lineups, which makes him kind of a little bit more, able to get to the rim. Right here, though, again, just kind of freezes it, just using that strength, right? Not the quickest guy, but he's just kind of just good at kind of lowering his shoulder in a way, kind of carving out space for himself on these drives. And, that wasn't a pass, but it ended up being a nice little assist for him. But yeah, so I mean that's kind of like the Duarte experience. Nothing super flashy, but he just got a fucking flamethrower, right? That's basically what it is. And so it's kind of funny to watch him just because he's not the most glamorous guy, but every single shot he takes, it seems to go in, which I think is really just kind of impressive. So yeah, see right here, both teams shooting the 3-ball very well. We got final 7 minutes here in the first half. Not much going on with Duarte here. It's going to be a block charge. I don't know. And he's going to be out for a little bit right here, so I will skip ahead. He's going to be in the entire second half, too, just FYI. So this is probably going to be on the longer side in terms of like the breakdowns, but yeah. And right here, so he was out for maybe like 2.5 minutes, and he's back in. Played, I think, like 38 minutes in this game, so yeah, again, he was kind of an Iron Man. He played a lot of minutes, close to 34 minutes a game this year, which is absurd for college players, right? So yeah, that's something that I think is worth noting. And what else is there about Chris Duarte? Obviously, just like the age thing, I think is just a kind of a unique discussion because I don't know who the oldest rookie is in terms of like the oldest drafted rookie, right? Because obviously they have some rookies that are really old just because they come from Europe and then the draft rights have already expired and so they can just sign with a team. But in terms of like just 24-year-old rookie, that's weird, right? And then yeah, like in this game though, or in this season I should say, Chris Duarte just like every single game, every single big game, it felt like Duarte was just on something. You know what I mean? He was on like performance enhancing, I don't know, not drugs, but just like he had something in his palms that made the ball go in every single time he touched it, right? Kind of like, he was like wearing those fucking like Mike shoes. That's what Chris Duarte was doing in a lot of these big games. Like against Iowa, he's scoring like 27. Like against all these NCAA tournament teams, he's like just dropping like 30 pieces, just all this stuff. And again, just like one of the more polished scorers in this class. Obviously doesn't have like the athleticism and the overall like burst of like a Jalen Green or like a Cade Cunningham. But in terms of like where he's going to get drafted, which is probably going to be like mid to late first, I think Duarte is a really good value pick, especially for a contending team that's looking for a guy who can contribute right away. And that's definitely Duarte. We'll see what he does right here. He's going to get the ball back to Will Richardson, who I think is back at Oregon this year. I'm not 100% sure. But again, Duarte, I love the way that like the second he touches the ball, he's in triple threat position, right? It's literally like, am I going to pass? Am I going to dribble? Am I going to shoot it? Right? And he just kind of makes that decision really quick. And a lot of times like he's really good at kind of using his body to protect the ball, whether it be between the legs dribble, behind the back dribble, or just something simple as just kind of like, using his strength to kind of like back people down, right? You can see right there, pretty good aggression from Duarte once he realizes that miscue, and it's going to be Oregon ball. See what we got here. It's going to be a deflection out of bounds, Oregon ball still. This Oregon team was actually really weird, just in terms of like their season. I think they didn't play a whole lot of games because I think they got shut down for COVID maybe once. Just kind of like a weird team in the Pac-12. They were kind of always in that fringe top 25 area. Duarte, like this is what this shot making from Chris Duarte is just unbelievable, right? And this is gonna translate anywhere, any league he ends up playing in, probably the NBA if he keeps making shots like this though, right? Like the step back, that's an NBA scoring move, and he's able to get that up over a taller defender, rattle it home, and this is what I mean, like. Chris Duarte has the like Mike shoes. Like, I'm telling you, this is ridiculous. Just the overall, just the poise, the balance. He never gets off balance. The flexible release, the ability to shoot it off the dribble, off the catch, off movement, whatever you would need him to do. Just such a solid offensive player. See right there, just great rotation. It's just ridiculous what Duarte's been doing in this first half. And let's see what we got here. Good. What was that? Who was that? LJ Figueroa, I think? Right. But no, this Oregon team was kind of weird just in terms of like their season in general. And then they get to the tournament. They're a 7th seed in the Gonzaga region. They were supposed to play VCU in the first round. They drop out because of COVID. Then they play Iowa, and they just smoke them. Like, it wasn't even close. Oregon just basically out-athleted them, right? Iowa obviously had defensive issues all year, and that's going to be an issue when you're playing a guy like Chris Duarte who could just hit from anywhere on the floor. And so then they go to USC, and they just get their shit rocked. Like, it was a blowout, I think. But overall, like, you got to be impressed, and overall, I wowould say, as a 17 to make the Sweet 16, I think that's probably a good season, you know? But just a weird year for Oregon. I feel like they've been having a lot of those years recently, too, where they're just kind of like, fringe top 25, you know, like maybe make the tournament as like an 8 seed, maybe win a game, get some lucky draw, and then kind of just get to the Sweet 16. Was it in 2019 where they were a 12 seed and they got probably the worst 4 seed? Who did they play? They played someone like horrible they played Wisconsin as a 5 seed. And then they got lucky with UC Irvine as a 13. And that was their route to the Sweet 16. They gave Virginia a pretty solid run for about 32 minutes. And then they ultimately fell short as Virginia went to win a national championship that year. But again, they're just kind of one of these teams that seems to like, they always seem to be playing their best basketball at the right time of the year. And that was true for Oregon, and that was certainly true for Chris Duarte as well. You know, he really kind of, in these big games, he was just on fire. And again, I mentioned it earlier where I was trying to, you know, find better representative games, but I really couldn't find any. And then Duarte just kind of, you know, like all the games that were on YouTube, he's just making everything. So I do think that kind of is how his season went, though. I mean, when you're shooting 53% from the floor, 43% from 3, that's a really good year, you know? Let's rewind this defensively right here. So we got Duarte, again, just kind of like slow getting out of that screen. It looks like that right foot, he wanted to kind of, he moved his left foot first on that screen, right? And that kind of gets him on the back of Arizona's point guard. Just little things like that I think he could clean up technically. But overall, I think he's a very fundamentally sound defender. Just sometimes I think because he wants to compensate for his lack of speed, it kind of leads him to just kind of, you know, abandon those fundamentals, right? And so again, that's also another issue. Like at 24, how much can he really improve? You know, all these questions with Duarte. Personally, I think, you know, depending on the team, he could be your guy at like, you know, right there. The pass is a little bit too long for Oregon center. And again, doesn't really have great, like, you know, passing chops, I would say. He kind of recognizes open players, and I think that's good. But in terms of just, like, you know, being a guy that can really connect on, like, those types of passes where, like, the timing on the alley-oops, things like that, it'll be somewhat of an issue. But again, just depending on what team you are, like, he could be a top 10 guy for you. You know what I mean? You know, obviously, if you're in the top 10 and you're a contending team like Golden State, for example, like, you're probably not going to take Duarte just because the value isn't there. But in terms of guys who like can contribute to a current championship window, right? That's a good little like phrase. I'm going to start using that. So, in terms of ranking guys who can contribute to a current championship window team, right? I would say Chris Duarte is a top 5 player in this draft class. That's what I would say. Just super experienced, you know, will get minutes right away because of his defense. You know, the shooting obviously is fantastic. So yeah, that's what I'll say. Chris Duarte is a top 5 player in the draft class for a currently competing team. That's what I'll say. And I'm talking about like the top tier contenders. I'm not talking about like the fringe contenders. I'm not talking about like, I don't know, like Dallas, right? He certainly helped Dallas, but like not like that. Like I'm talking about guys that like, you know, like the Los Angeles teams, the Brooklyns, the Milwaukee Bucks, right? Like those teams, Phoenix. Those teams I think he would help a lot, and that's where I can kind of consider him top 5. But with that ends the first half video, so I will pause it right here. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, kind of put on a show for us offensively. So second half, look for more finishing at the rim, look for a lot more shot creation off the dribble, and then it's overall kind of monitoring his defense, seeing how he's doing on the ball versus off the ball. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and stay tuned for part 2. Bye.